Hey everybody, welcome to the Herd Fit Podcast with Dr. Sam Rhee and myself, Coach David Syvertsen. This podcast is aimed at helping anyone and everyone looking to enhance their healthy lifestyle through fitness, nutrition, and most importantly, mindset.
All right, welcome back to the Herd Fit Podcast. I am Coach David Syvertsen. I'm here with my co-host, Dr. and Coach Sam Rhee, and we have a very special guest today. We've been trying to line this up for a while, but schedules are hard. And we are getting this in at the last minute because fortunately for her, unfortunately for us, Allison Warner, our guest, is moving to California. We're going to get into that in a little bit, I'm sure. But Allison, welcome to the Herd Fit Podcast.
Thank you. I've been looking forward to this for a while, so thrilled to be here.
She wore an Eagles sweatshirt to the gym, and we said that's actually banned from being on the Herd Fit Podcast.
I had to stir the pot a little, you know.
I appreciate it. So welcome. I really want people to kind of get to, Sam calls this your CrossFit start story, right? And I do think, I have to spend a ton of time on it, but it's important for us to know and the listeners to know where and when, why, how, all this stuff did you get involved with CrossFit?
Yeah, so I've been doing CrossFit forever. I think that was one of the first things you and I talked about.
Yeah, one of the true OGs.
One of the true OGs. So I started CrossFit in March of 2009. So I was a college gymnast. I graduated college in 2005. And like so many other former high-level athletes, got really lost when my college career was over. And I just kind of didn't know what to do with myself. I had started medical school and thought that, Sam, this, you just dive in and then you become a full-time student. And that life wasn't working for me. I was so used to coming home from school, going to practice, having 4 or 5 hours of practice, and then cramming in studying. And that's how my life had worked for 20 plus years. And so, like so many other former athletes, I was like, what do? You run a marathon because you don't know what else to do. So I did that for a little while. I discovered two things. One is that I'm really bad at running, and two is that running for a really long time is pretty boring. And I decided to do a triathlon. Cool. So I was working out, training for triathlon, realized I'd lost all my upper body strength from gymnastics, and that was like completely unacceptable to me.
Disappointing.
Yeah. So I went to the gym at Duke where I was in medical school, and this guy comes up to me in the gym, and he's like, "You know how to lift?" And I was like, "Yep, I do."
Yeah, pretty sure.
And I'm like, okay, why is this guy talking to me at the gym? We've all gotten hit on at the gym, like not anyone's favorite thing. And he's like, have you heard of CrossFit? And I was like, nope. This is 2008.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm not hitting on you, I promise. I realize this is creepy, but go home, Google Fran CrossFit, and next time you see me here, if it looks interesting, come talk to me.
That is so funny. There are so many times in life over the past 10 years that I've wanted to do that. Like seeing someone work out, or I'm just honestly just watching someone walk around. I'm like, yeah, I want to go to that person. Just come on Wednesday. Just give it a shot. Like, and it would be so creepy, so I don't do it.
Exactly. That's the first thing I thought. You really don't do that.
No, don't. It's really creepy. I'm not gonna lie. I almost didn't do it.
Credit to that guy, though.
Credit to that guy. So I went home. I Googled Fran. I thought it was pretty awesome. One of the first CrossFit gyms had just opened in North Carolina in Durham.
This is so cool. It's like a true OG story.
And he was like, look, come with me. We'll just try, if you hate it, whatever. Right. And at that time, CrossFit Durham was sharing space with an MMA gym, which I had no experience with. So I walk in and people are like hitting each other and all this stuff. And there's a rig in the back corner. And I was like, all right, I guess that's where we're going. My first workout was 7 minutes of Cindy.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
And as a former gymnast, I was like, oh, so easy, right? No problem.
Pull up, push up. Come on.
Yeah, come on. Like all day. 7 minutes flat on my back, staring at the ceiling, wondering what the hell happened to me. And they were like, see you tomorrow?
Yep.
See you tomorrow.
There's an understanding there.
Yeah, there was an understanding there. And that was how it started. So
awesome.
I
Question, the guy the creeper, that we have to credit you for getting involved in CrossFit. Did he belong there? Or he literally just was like a CrossFit angel that came out of the sky and left?
Actually did. So back then, there was a lot of CrossFit happening at universities. There was actually University Games back then. And he was more doing that at Duke.
Okay.
But, the community was so small then that people came and go, we all dropped into different gyms. Yeah. And so he had been to CrossFit Durham, but wasn't a member or coach there.
Okay. Interesting.
So yeah, I mean, I went from that in March of 2009 to got my level 1 in January of 2010. Did my first competition in March of 2010, which was just like back then there were so few competitions. So we hosted a big one at CrossFit Durham for most of the gyms in North Carolina.
Cool.
And ended up competing on a team that year. So went to regionals. We qualified to the games.
Wow.
Competed in the 2010 games on a team. And
Was that at the ranch or was that in Carson?
it was a first year in Carson.
Okay, sweet. The
Which
Home
was
Depot
really
Center.
cool. Kind of a bummer, actually, because I still, to this day, I've been doing CrossFit since 2009. I still haven't been to the ranch.
Same.
But
the
I'm
bucket list.
going.
Are you?
There's
you're going to be out there now.
There's a MD level 2 that's happening at the ranch soon,
cool.
and I'm going to that one. So
cool.
I'm really pumped about that.
Oh, that's awesome.
But yeah, so competed for a while, and then life took over. Had to actually start
be a doctor.
Be a doctor or become a doctor at that point. I was in medical school and working on my PhD. And so, I think one of the things that's been interesting for me has been the many seasons of CrossFit, right? I went from focusing for so many years on being an athlete, as an individual athlete, as a gymnast, and then a team athlete in CrossFit. And then, I coached all through medical school, my PhD, all through residency, through most of fellowship.
This is still down in North Carolina, right?
So medical school, PhD were in North Carolina at CrossFit Durham, and I coached at CrossFit Local in Chapel Hill.
Okay.
And then I did my residency in Boston at Mass General and was part of the team at Reebok CrossFit Back Bay, which is now Invictus Boston.
Yep.
Brick, when there was a Brick in Boston.
Cool.
And then a local gym called Avalon. I moved to New York for my fellowship and coached at a gym called Ice in the city.
Cool.
That unfortunately was one of the victims of the pandemic and closed pretty early in the pandemic.
Did you live in the city?
I lived in the city through mid-pandemic, actually,
Okay.
And then moved out here, which is when I found Bison and been here ever since.
Cool. Yeah, so before, and we're going to really kind of make a turn towards the CrossFit Health at some point, but I still kind of want to get more out of you. Like, I feel like someone that's in CrossFit for that long and has been to that many boxes, there's a lot of value. There's a lot of knowledge in your head that I think it would help for us to hear as coaches, same night coaches, but also members of a community. And, of all these gyms that you have been to, and CrossFit has evolved a lot since you've started, right? I mean, night and day,
Night and day.
right?
Night and day.
What are kind of just a couple of, off the top of your head, of traits of a gym that you think do it right, even though do it right, those goalposts have shifted over the years, right? But what are a couple of the traits off the top of your head? I know I'm just dropping you on this right now, but that you really think are kind of like the pillars of something that keeps us CrossFit strong.
Yeah, no worries. This is something actually I thought a lot about because when we moved out here, I actually tried out 8 CrossFit gyms in this area before I came to Bison and before I stayed at Bison.
Wow.
This is not super close to where I live out here in the suburbs. And so it took a little bit for me to decide to come here, but I couldn't find what I was looking for. And so I can tell you exactly what it was.
Yeah.
I think number one, first and foremost, is community. It doesn't matter whether you have the best athletes, the worst athletes. This should be and is here a safe space, right? It's your place to come to be as fit or as not fit, but to just move the needle a little for everyone.
Yeah. Love that.
And to have also the support in the rest of your life. I mean, I think for me, when I really learned about the community of CrossFit, one of our members at CrossFit Durham, who actually is now one of my closest friends, got breast cancer. And this was well before like Barbells for Boobs and all of these organizations were, prominent. And our gym just rallied around her. We went with her to every treatment.
Wow.
Half our members, the guys shaved their heads with her. We raised a lot of money for her treatment. And that's when I learned what the CrossFit community was. And that's what I fell in love with.
Awesome.
And I think that exists here.
Yeah.
I think other things that are really important, though, coaches who are willing to meet members where they are. Right? You're going to have some super high level athletes, and we have them here. I mean, we have athletes that make my mind spin.
Yeah.
But also, you can walk in the door of this gym and be 400 pounds.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Right.
Right. And you will get fitter, and we will move that needle, and you're welcome.
Right.
And you will do the same workout. I've seen a lot of gyms start to like segment off competitor track and this track, and then the newbies are over there in the corner.
Yep.
And the beauty of CrossFit
Yeah.
is the scalability.
Yep. It's a
Right?
huge part of the methodology that if you really truly believe in CrossFit, we had a conversation with someone, I think it was Coda, right? And Coda's, one of our athletes that competes here, does a really good job. But I said, when in doubt, like if you ever, it's just do CrossFit. Like if you really truly believe in the methodology, like the classes, be with people, that is really where the core is at.
Yeah, I mean, we can all do extra programming. We can all do all those things, depending on what you're focused on. But
Right.
everyone here, from the coaches
Mhm.
to the competitors to everybody else, they do our programming. And
Right.
to me, it makes the community, but it also just speaks to that whole idea that everyone is a member of the same suffering, right? Suffer with friends.
As Sam says, drinks the Kool-Aid.
Drinks the Kool-Aid, exactly. And I think that to me were the two things that really stood out about Bison.
Those are good answers. Sam, thoughts on those answers? Because we talk about this a lot. Sam and I talk about this a lot at the podcast, off the podcast, just traits of a good gym.
Yeah. I mean, Allison's been involved at every level of CrossFit for many, many, many years. And
Yeah.
so when I listen to her speak, there are two things that come to mind. One is it is exactly what the CrossFit home office and what we all believe in. If you're truly a person, that's
Right.
exactly what you should be doing and living every day at the gym. And the second thing is that I'm glad that there's another physician on the podcast. It was the first time we've ever had another physician. And I don't like bringing the
I'm so intimidated right now, by the way.
And we don't, well, listen, you should be, because as a physician, we don't bring medicine onto this side ever, because it's really about CrossFit and
Right.
health and,
Yeah.
and not, I mean, the CrossFit side of health.
Yes.
And, but I have to say that as physicians, who has credibility and names count.
yes.
And when you look at Dr. Allison Warner,
Right.
look at her resume, it blows
She's big time.
anyone
We're
else
going to get
I've
into that. We're gonna get
ever
into that.
met.
Yeah.
Because where did you do your undergrad?
Cornell.
At Cornell. And then you went to med school at Duke.
I did.
And you did your PhD at Duke. And now, just to explain to people who don't know medicine a lot, if you're a Mudfoot or MD PhD, you have to spend an inordinate amount of time in the lab to get your doctorate. And getting your doctorate is no joke.
Mhm.
Like, you really,
Hardest thing I've ever done.
oh my God,
by
the
far.
research that's involved. And it's not just BS. Like, I did like a year or two of research in medical school. That's BS. Like, you have to come up with something real and come up with a thesis and come up with something groundbreaking.
Wow.
And this is at one of the most elite institutions in the world. And then after that, she went into one of the most intellectually demanding specialties, which is oncology. I mean, I'm just a cutter. Like, literally, I am one
more
of the,
than a cutter.
and I'm a cosmetic cutter, which is probably like the worst that you could think of on the hierarchy of surgical specialties. And then she did a fellowship in oncology at MSK?
Yep.
At Memorial Sloan Kettering, which is arguably, and honestly, I don't think anyone would argue, the premier cancer center in the world. Like, there's no other place like
Wow.
that. And then she works there. It's specializing in melanoma, which is one of the most exciting, I would say, fields that I've seen in the past years in terms of research and advanced treatments and new developments in terms of managing melanoma. And then they hired her out at Stanford, which is why she's leaving New Jersey,
Yep.
to be the heavy hitter there and sort of bring what she has had at MSK for all those years. So I know a lot of people don't know like what that means, but in medicine, she is probably top of the top. Like, you're not going to find anyone, and you hear what she says and you're like, she is probably one of the smartest, hardest working people in medicine that I've probably ever met. And
Wow.
you don't even have to know who she is. You just
Yeah.
have to look at that resume and
Yeah.
like, you don't fake your
I was
way
going to
through.
say, you can't fake
You
that.
can't fake any of this.
No, fake it till you
no,
make
no,
it.
no,
in
no,
that.
no,
Yeah.
no. She's
I still think I'm faking it until I make it, but
she's the real deal. And
That's awesome.
the fact is that she was able to parallel her CrossFit journey with all this. I could barely keep my head above water in med school. Like,
Yeah.
I was literally dying with the workload I had. And then same in residency.
I
was
believe it. I believe it.
dying.
Yeah.
And my health, every outside activity took a huge nosedive.
Right.
And that the fact that she was able to make this important to her,
Yeah.
work it somehow in with everything else.
At
Like,
a high level, too.
right. Like,
Yeah.
we think working and working out is hard and this and that. Listen,
Different level.
like, yeah, this is like next level in terms of organizational skills and making sure you have your priorities straight. And the fact that she's actually been on every level in the organization of CrossFit as well
Yeah.
shows her dedication to CrossFit.
Then the belief in it, everything.
We've seen her featured on CrossFit Health,
Yep.
in seminars. She's been at the games multiple times, both as a participant and then also on staff, and then also as an expert in terms of talking about CrossFit and health. So, as low key as Allison is,
just know that if you're in the same room as her, you're definitely not the smartest person with her.
She is a rock star on every level.
You guys are making me blush, so we're going to have to move on.
All right. So I just wanted to say that because I know she wouldn't say that. So
it does. I will say that I know, Allison, that's probably uncomfortable. It just helps for people that are listening to truly know that whatever you say about what we're going to be talking about today, it should be taken very serious.
Absolutely.
All right?
No, I appreciate that. I think one other thing that I think is important to mention about that, and Dave, you and I talked about this when I first came to the gym, is that there's different seasons of life and different seasons of your CrossFit career, right? There are times where I was really focused on being a really good CrossFitter.
Right.
There were really times where I was focused on keeping my head above water.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, keeping my head above water meant going to the gym, because if I didn't, I was going to lose my mind.
Right.
And it wasn't necessarily that I had the time or anything else. That was my coping mechanism during residency. That was my coping mechanism during fellowship. And that is my coping mechanism when I lose a patient now.
Right.
And so, I've struggled with this, that, there are times where I definitely, the open comes around and I'm like, wow, I really used to be a fit person and I'm really not a fit person anymore. And that's really hard at times.
Yeah.
I still struggle with that. And it's been 10 plus years since I was really a competitive CrossFitter.
Right.
But I think it speaks also to, the grace that we have to have with ourselves and knowing that, there are different seasons of life. And part of now that I'm a little bit more established in my career, you guys have seen me a lot more, right? I've been here a lot more.
Right.
I'm getting back to being a semi-fit person. I surprise myself every once in a while and do well at a workout. And so, but everybody who goes through this process and does this for any period of time is going to experience that, whether it's injury, whether it's you have a child, whether it's, you have a job that's tough or you lose your job, there's ups and downs. And I think learning to kind of roll with that and find the joy in CrossFit anyway is so important.
Right. That's awesome. Those are really good words. Thanks. So let's kind of make the turn to CrossFit Health. And I'll be honest with you, it's a program that I don't know much about. Like, the inception, why, how long was this coming? But I do know, because I'm a big reader of old CrossFit Journal articles, that this was a long time coming from the founder of CrossFit, Greg Glassman. He always wanted to shift CrossFit towards health, not just performance, right? And now here we are. I still very much involved in the CrossFit space. Obviously, I can read a definition. I am going to read it, what it is, off the CrossFit website. But I still don't know much more about it because I just don't think it's out there that much. There's been a lot of leadership change in CrossFit, obviously, and that's definitely a big part of it. But I'm really kind of glad and honored that you're here so that you can really give us some of the inside track as much as you want to. But CrossFit Health this is off the website, is a space for healthcare professionals to access education, connect with the community, and find the most effective ways to support their patients. That's like the CrossFit definition of CrossFit Health. What is Allison's definition of CrossFit Health?
Yeah, I would say there's, from my perspective, sort of two main parts of CrossFit Health that led to this sort of entity that I agree is still far too nebulous, but we're getting there.
Yeah.
So one was this idea that Greg has always had of, reaching people beyond the gym, right? And incorporating fitness and wellness into healthcare, preventing illness using fitness, wellness, nutrition, etc. So I think that's one big part of CrossFit Health. I think the other big part of CrossFit Health, as how it started, was many of us in the community, doctors, nurses, PAs, physical therapists, looking for friends to refer to. Right. So we would have a patient, I was at that time probably an internal medicine doctor. And so, I needed a subspecialist, an oncologist, or an orthopedic surgeon to send a patient to. And so often, a patient would go to an orthopedic surgeon and they would say, oh, you should never squat. Right. You have a bad knee. You should never squat. And I would lose my mind and give the 27 reasons why that was a bad idea. But I had just literally sent the patient to a subspecialist who told them they should never squat.
Right.
Mhm.
And so we were looking to find a network of like-minded people that approached medicine the same way.
Mm.
And so some of this started as a very grassroots effort from a bunch of us to like put together a spreadsheet. I mean, this actually started on an Excel spreadsheet
Yeah.
of like CrossFitting doctors and practitioners around the country
Yeah.
in different fields.
And know what's cool now on the CrossFit affiliate map, right? Like if you're traveling and you go to the CrossFit affiliate map, you want to find a gym. They now have a filter on that map to show where physicians are by city. So if you needed an orthopedic surgeon in California, you could put it in the zip code and it'll tell you who among those orthopedic surgeons out there are tied to CrossFit or part of CrossFit Health. So that spreadsheet now has turned into that.
Yeah, and it's really, I mean, it's great. And people, for those of you who don't know about it and are medical practitioners, get yourself on that list. It's really important. One, so people can find you, but also so your colleagues can find you. I mean, you know, Sam and I have talked about a lot of aspects of medicine, CrossFit, health, you know, wellness. And one of the appeals of this gym was that there was somebody in that space that I could share that with. And so, you know, this has grown beyond, I think one of the, you know, original criticisms of CrossFit Health was that it was really limited to just MDs.
Right.
And we all know that this is a team sport,
Mhm.
right? Both CrossFit and our team sports. And, you know, CrossFit Health has really now taken a really nice turn and grown to involve anyone involved in any aspect of healthcare.
So like a chiropractor / physical therapist.
Yep. Nurses, nurse practitioners, you know,
I didn't know they made that shape. Okay,
nutritionists.
cool.
You know, a good friend of mine is actually a sex educator, which is obviously a huge part of health.
Yep.
They're included in CrossFit Health. So really trying to think about this much more holistically.
Cool. Sam, opening like thoughts on CrossFit Health from your perspective.
Yeah, I have also struggled with CrossFit Health. And I feel like Greg Glassman has said, and I've heard this before, and I believe it 1,000%, the healthcare community are like lifeguards and CrossFit coaches are like the swim instructors. And unfortunately, a lot of times when healthcare gets involved, it's when people are drowning. And it's true, most of our healthcare is revolved around helping people in acute situations, like very acute situations.
Right.
And we're really pretty good at dealing with acute situations, you know, whether it be someone falling on the ground from cardiac arrest, which we recently saw, or trauma, or diagnosing a disease and managing it immediately. But the chronic conditions and the maintenance of health and the building of health and fitness is something that I never learned ever, not even once in med school. My nutrition knowledge was literally like 2 weeks of my med school life, maybe. And it was the worst nutrition course I think I've ever taken in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much everything I've learned from health and fitness was not medicine related. It was outside of medicine.
Got it.
And to be fair, there's a little bit of that is you're a surgeon and your surgical training is a little bit different.
True.
I mean, you know, as an internist,
Yeah.
you know, I was an internist before I was an oncologist.
Yeah.
There is a lot more, still not nearly enough, but a lot more focus on preventative healthcare, wellness, et cetera. But unfortunately, our healthcare system and the reimbursement system is designed for sick care, not well care.
Yep.
And I agree. I mean, this is a huge problem in this country.
The other thing is that I think most providers wrestle with how do we get more patients and people into CrossFit? And if you think about it, just as a regular person, how do you get the people around you into CrossFit? That's hard. Like I'm all in on CrossFit. Everyone knows I'm all in on CrossFit. And I struggle with people who know me, trust me, love me, getting into CrossFit. I mean,
So I'll jump in with a great story that I don't think either of you know, actually.
That's good.
So I've been doing CrossFit since 2009, as you heard. I've been married. I met my husband in 2014. We've been married since 2016. He actually didn't start CrossFit until this year.
Wow.
He literally was married to someone who's
Yeah.
done all these different things in CrossFit. He lived with me in
Took
a
7-8 years.
one bedroom apartment while I was like coaching Zoom classes during the pandemic. And it took all of those years for him, as someone who was never really an athlete, to really walk in the door and feel, comfortable doing that. And now, I mean,
What got him over the hump, you think?
I think it was a few things.
You think it was health related?
I think it was definitely health related. We're 40s and, starting to think about longer term cardiovascular health and those types of things.
Yep.
I think he had seen also for me that, when we first met, I was still a pretty good athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, if anything, the pandemic was tough. I was a doctor in the city and, ran a COVID ICU for a while. So I did no fitness for quite some time and saw me go, from being this higher level athlete to really pretty unfit, unfortunately, and be able to walk into a gym and be okay with that and, and build that back up. And I think that was a confidence builder for him.
Right.
Because it is intimidating. And unfortunately, I think so many people have seen, fortunately and unfortunately, so many people have seen the CrossFit Games.
Right.
And that's a wonderful thing. And it's a wonderful part of our community. But quite frankly, that's not what CrossFit's about.
It's intimidating for a lot of people, I'm sure.
It's it could be a turnoff for most.
It is a turnoff for most, right? I mean, my favorite part of coaching is, when I coached at CrossFit Durham, we used to do a free Saturday workout and we would do it outside on purpose so that people walking around Durham would see normal people doing CrossFit.
Normal stuff.
Doing normal stuff or abnormal stuff. Right. But scaled appropriately.
Right.
And that's the stuff that I wish was on TV, right? That's the stuff that doctors wish their patients would see. Because you don't have to be able to walk in the door and do a pull-up, let alone handstand walk across the gym. Right? You have to be able to sit down on the toilet and stand back up.
Yeah, and get off the ground and stuff like that.
All right, I'm going to take 2 years, eat like a pig, gain 50 pounds, and then my friends will join me doing CrossFit.
I'm in, Sam. I'm in.
Well, unfortunately, I didn't intend to do that, but that is sort of what happened to me during the pandemic. So, but I do think that there's a lot of that. And I think CrossFit did, for a little while, try to focus on that. There were a lot of ads during the games
picking up
and
the
stuff.
milk jugs and stuff.
But also, I mean, there was a lot of commercials and stuff during the games, I think 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, of more normal people stories.
Yeah. I think more of that's starting to come out now too. I think that's one of the big initiatives of new CrossFit leadership is I think they're coming out with the magic of CrossFit stuff. It's like they're going to start like releasing videos for gyms to share to show like, hey, normal people do this stuff. Let's stop highlighting muscle ups and everything.
So as a provider, how do you incorporate CrossFit in terms of talking to your patients? Because I know I struggle mightily with that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I would say like your patients and my patients are two completely opposite ends of the spectrum, right?
If there's a hint of sickness,
you won't touch them.
I won't touch them.
And meanwhile, I take care of patients who have metastatic cancer. That my specialty is, something that's spread to the brain, right? The sickest of the sick people.
Yeah.
And so, I think first and foremost, I think one thing that we should throw out there is like my PhD focused on the effects of exercise on treatment of cancer. And so this is something that I have been really passionate about for a long time, but also have a lot of knowledge in.
Right.
And so I feel much more comfortable than many of my colleagues talking about exercise and fitness in the context of especially cancer. There are many oncologists out there who don't know anything about fitness. And so they're not going to feel comfortable talking about it with their patients.
Understood.
Because they don't know whether it's safe or not. Right? First rule of medicine, do no harm.
Right.
And if you don't know, the answer is no. And that's unfortunate. And that shouldn't be true, but it is true because our biggest fear is harming someone.
Absolutely.
Right. And so one of the things that I've been working on and how I got so involved in CrossFit Health and why I'm so passionate about it, despite the fact that it's not perfect, is because we need to get the word out there that this is safe for people and helps people. So, I mean, one simplest thing is every time I meet a new patient, we do something called a social history, right? Are you married? Do you have kids? Did you ever smoke? Do you drink? You've all been asked these questions. One of the questions that I ask every patient, right, is do you exercise? And what does that look like? And they look at me like I'm insane because they just got told they had metastatic cancer. And they're like, well, why do you care if I exercise? And eventually, once we're through an acute crisis situation, right? We come around to why that's so important to their cancer care, right? And how that may help them survive their cancer, or at least make their cancer journey much more tolerable.
In basic terms, I'm just really curious. What is, I know you could probably go into a really deep answer on this, but what is some of the reasoning behind telling someone to exercise while they have cancer?
Yeah, so I think there's two different things. So there's the preventative aspects. So there's no question about it. Exercise helps prevent many forms of cancer, at least 20, 25 types of cancer.
Okay.
This has been proven 27 ways from Sunday. Exercise as a cancer treatment is a much newer field.
Okay.
It's something that we call exercise oncology. That was a term that was actually coined by my mentor when I was a PhD student.
Nice.
So
That's cool.
This field is really new.
Yeah.
And really, my PhD was one of the first sort of mechanistic looks at why this works. We took some mice, we ran them, versus mice that didn't run, gave them tumors and looked at what happened to the tumor. And we were able to show that the tumors grew much more slowly.
Wow.
And when you combine that with chemotherapy, you could get more chemotherapy into the tumor for the same dose, right? Because you were improving the blood flow to the tumor.
Right.
And there's some very complicated science that goes beyond that. But, that was just one type of cancer. There's many different things. Now I work in, melanoma, which is a much more immune-driven cancer. It's treated by immune therapies. And we've learned that exercise used correctly can help boost the immune response.
Okay.
And so there's a lot that goes into this, but even if you took the effects of exercise on a tumor itself out of it, because I think that's still not something that we completely understand. It's something that we know in mice and haven't yet completely proven in humans.
Right.
What we do know is that every quality of life metric goes up for patients who exercise. This has been shown, again, 27 ways from Sunday.
Okay.
Fatigue, depression, anxiety, treatment-related anxiety, any of those types of quality of life metrics that you think about, they improve with exercise.
Okay.
And so if I do nothing to improve your cancer, I have improved your quality of life.
Right.
And quite frankly, that means I did my job.
Hell yeah. Sam.
Mind-blowing, honestly.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It really is. And
I can't believe we haven't talked about this yet. That was awesome to hear. Really.
Yeah, and you're 1,000% right. And I know that everyone who participates in CrossFit and does CrossFit, the quality of life metric has to go up. I don't know anyone, and I know personally myself the same way. But does it have to be CrossFit? Like, do you push CrossFit or do you just push exercise in general?
I talk about CrossFit. My patients know a lot of things about me. People have different relationships with their patients. One of the sad but fun things about leaving has been the funny things that my patients have given me or known about me over the years. So I got a Philly sweatshirt, that Eagle sweatshirt the other day. They're all gifts from patients because they know these things about me.
Yeah.
And so I certainly talk about CrossFit.
Mm-hmm.
They know that I coach on the side and, that those are things. But it doesn't have to be CrossFit.
Right.
Honestly,
Absolutely.
The recommendations are 150 minutes a week of moderate intensity exercise, which is something as simple as walking a little faster than you would normally stroll,
right?
Getting your heart rate up a little bit. Or 75 minutes of more vigorous intensity exercise, something like riding a bike, maybe a jog.
Mm-hmm.
It can be anything, right? And we purposely say it in minutes like that so that you could do 5-minute blocks or 10-minute blocks. Because if you sit down and you look at a patient who hasn't exercised and now has metastatic cancer or feels really unwell or just got diagnosed with diabetes or whatever it is and say, you need to go to an hour-long class.
Yeah.
Right? They're going to be like, yeah. Okay.
With snatches and handstand push-ups.
Or even just an hour-long, I don't know, you name it. I don't want to throw another, type of fitness under the bus. But any class, right? That's super intimidating for someone who doesn't exercise 5 minutes a day.
Right.
And so moving your body, right? When I give talks about this in academics, I say movement is medicine. That's what I title my talks.
Mm-hmm.
And that I truly believe that.
Mm-hmm.
CrossFit is great, right? And many people will get there. And, over the years, I've had many of my patients end up joining my CrossFit gyms.
Nice, right.
But that's not where it starts for most people, and that's fine.
Right. Yeah.
What do you talk about on the nutrition side? Because Greg Glassman started with a big joust against big soda, and nutrition obviously is a huge part of health. Maybe for some people even a bigger issue?
Yeah. So, I mean, nutrition, honestly, we all know this, right, is the end all and be all, right? Your body composition is made in the kitchen, not in the gym. We all know that. You know, I think part of it is meeting patients where they are, right? If you're taking someone who's never thought about a macro a day in their life or doesn't know what a macro is, right? I'm not going to tell them to start counting macros.
Right, exactly.
Right? I'm not going to talk about paleo. I'm not going to talk about the zone or any of the numerous things CrossFit has done over the years. We're going to talk about eating high quality foods, less sugar, right? Fitness in 100 words or nutrition in 100 words, right? Like more plants, like the simple things, right? I think one thing that I've had issue with CrossFit Health some over the years, and I know, Sam, you and I have talked about this, was the real focus for a while on this connection between sugar and cancer. And, one of my jobs, as while I certainly believe that none of us should be eating extra sugar and it's not good for any of us, one of my jobs is to practice evidence-based medicine. And there is no evidence that sugar feeds cancer. There's absolutely no evidence. There's no evidence that cutting out sugar from your diet will make you survive cancer. Okay. So I can't recommend that to my patients. I can say, look, I try to eat whole, healthy foods. I try to minimize sugar because that's what's good and that's what makes us all healthy. Right. But these very specific recommendations that have come out from people who aren't medical professionals and don't practice evidence-based medicine, those can be really problematic because it's the same thing as taking someone who doesn't work out and say, you have to go to CrossFit, right? And do an hour CrossFit class because that's the only way to do it, right? If you take a person who's, drinks 8 Cokes a day and say, you can't eat any sugar. It's going to last 3 days, right?
And one ear out the other,
Oh, and they may try it and it's going to crash, right? And so, it's about meeting people where they are. It's about using evidence. I think that's a huge part of my practice is, if people aren't sure, I say, all right, here's the paper. Here's the randomized clinical trial, right? I have so many patients who come to me and say, oh, you're, because it's on my doctor profile too that I do, fitness, exercise, CrossFit stuff. And, patients come and say, you must believe that sugar feeds cancer. And I say, I don't. Here are the 3 randomized trials that prove that wrong. Right. And it blows people's minds.
Most people do not go into that depth when they bring something like that up. You do. So you again, credibility here is enormous. So now CrossFit Health, right? Where do you see it going? Where would you like it to go? How would that happen? Like what's your personal goal with CrossFit Health? Like where do you think its biggest value could be and how would you get there?
Yeah, I think the biggest value is really in education in the community. And that's really where I've been focusing. I mean, Sam, you made mention of this, but the last 3 years I've gone to the games and done seminars there. And we've started doing some of these videos similar to this to get out to the community what is evidence-based, right? What do we know scientifically? What don't we know scientifically, which is equally important? And my field happens to be cancer, but there are, plastic surgeons, there's rehab medicine doctors that are super involved. We're gaining sort of subject matter experts, as we've always called them in CrossFit, right? In a lot of different fields of medicine. And I think one of the biggest things that we can do through CrossFit Health is just get the word out. We have this community.
And platform.
And we already have, I jokingly call it a captive audience, right? Like people call us a cult and there's some truth to that, right? But we have a captive audience.
They'll listen. People
They'll listen.
I've always felt that if they, got put more into the website and just gave a lot more material for people to read, watch, listen to.
And we're working on that, right? So when I was at the games last year, we filmed 4 or 5 different, brief educational things, and they've gone up throughout the year.
That's awesome.
Now that CrossFit sends out their daily email.
It blows me away every time I see you on
I know,
there. I'm like,
same here.
Oh, I know that person.
That person.
She's in my 715 class.
My husband actually goes to a different CrossFit gym, and I dropped in with him one time when he finally let me and felt comfortable letting me go to CrossFit with him. they were like, wait, haven't I seen you before? And I was like, oh,
probably.
yeah, you have.
It's good though. That means people are seeing it.
But it means people are seeing it,
Yeah.
right? And so what I've been talking with CrossFit Health leadership about has been doing that, right, in all of these different fields, right?
Right.
In preventative medicine, in sports injuries, in
gut health,
right? In all of these different things, sexual health. I mean, I think that's something very few people don't talk about, and using the platform that we already have, because quite frankly, we have a lot of these experts in our community.
Hell yeah. I mean, you being one of them, a prime example, right?
We exist.
And there's a lot
here,
of you. There's
right?
a lot of you. Yeah.
And most of us love this stuff.
Right.
Right. And do it for free, right? I have never gotten paid one day of my life other than coaching CrossFit classes to do any of these things. Right. I love this stuff. I get out of bed in the morning to do this stuff.
And you love the community too.
And I love the community.
I feel like that's a big part of, like, I kind of picked that up on you right away. You love whether it's this gym or just the whole community of CrossFit.
Yeah. And so this isn't something that needs, quite frankly, a ton of money behind it. Right. And that's been one of the things that I've been trying to focus on through all of the leadership change of CrossFit.
Yeah.
That this isn't something that's a huge investment, right? These years that I've gone out to the games and done these seminars, I've flown out on my own dime. I've paid my own way. And all of us would do that, right? We care about this stuff.
Right.
And so that we just need to build on that expertise that we already have.
Yeah.
There's so much more we could do longer term, but I think that's how it starts.
Yeah, and I think it is going to go in that direction.
It is.
This is not something that's going to disappear. No. In CrossFit's defense, there have been so many changes at the top.
Totally.
And there are still changes occurring at the top with under the CEO, like who's leaving, who's staying. And Dave Castro was on with Savan, and love that podcast or not, right? There's information that CrossFit Health got brought up, and you could tell Castro started to get a little uncomfortable. I got the vibe that he definitely knows that someone needs to take it to the next step, and they need to as a team. But there are a lot of things that need to get taken care of. But he said CrossFit Health is on the list,
and it has been, it was under Greg. I will say that. Love Greg or hate Greg, wherever you fall in that spectrum.
Yeah.
In the last years of his tenure, this was something that he was really passionate about.
Yep.
It was under Eric, and now it seems to be under, new leadership. I think one of the things that has changed over the last year, which is a good change, but has sort of slowed us down a little bit, was that CrossFit Health went from sort of its own entity to falling under CrossFit Education. I think that's actually a really great move because they're going to be doing a lot more educational seminars, things like that.
Right.
That started some of the efforts at the games, but also like nutrition certifications and other certifications, hopefully, that you can get the same way we get a CrossFit gymnastics coaching cert. Right. So I actually think that's a good move, but it slowed us down quite a bit, 6 months to a year of transition. So I think some of these moves are really good.
Yeah.
And, none of us are the most patient people, but
that's true.
I think they're happening. I can't go into too much detail, but
I know. Yep.
But there's a lot happening behind the scenes. And I will say that there are a couple of super passionate people, some that work for CrossFit HQ, people like Karen Thompson, who has been running CrossFit Health from the very beginning, and then people like myself that have been sort of volunteers to just get it done.
Yeah.
And the movement is there, the tidal wave can't be stopped at this point. It just needs to happen.
That's awesome.
Do you think, I know I keep hearing that Don Fall's goal is to get more people into CrossFit affiliates and to have more resources for CrossFit affiliates to feel empowered to do so. How do you think CrossFit Health is going to do that for them? Let's start with that.
It's a great question. I think it's one we're going to tackle over the next year and a half. I haven't had the opportunity to meet Don yet. He literally was named CEO like the week that I was at the games, so he was a little busy. But I had the opportunity to meet one-on-one with Eric when, he was more involved in the day-to-day. And this is definitely, a priority of getting people in the door and teaching them more than the snatch, right? Teaching them truly, anyone who's ever been to a level 1 knows the sickness, wellness, fitness
spectrum.
Continuum, right? And I think there is this big focus on moving people towards wellness, much beyond learning the movements in the CrossFit gym.
So
exactly the form that that's going to take under Don, I can't speak to yet.
So if I'm owning an affiliate out there and I am told, expect good things from CrossFit Health, we're going to help you raise awareness so that people will see you as, well, as Greg used to say, lifeboats, I suppose, out there to help people. Like, is that truly what is going to happen?
I think so, and I hope so. I mean, can I put my nickel on that today and tell you I know exactly what the plan is? I don't, right? There's been a ton of leadership change even in just the last couple of weeks.
Right.
But there's definitely a lot of planning going on for things like educational packets, right? So, one of the things that I've been doing is making sort of a cheat sheet that we can put up on the CrossFit website for gyms that have cancer patients, right?
Okay.
That says like, here are the general things you need to think about, right? Does someone have a bone metastasis? Is it safe for them to load or not load, right? If they have something that's spread to their brain, like what movements do we need to think about?
Interesting.
Because I've heard, I mean, this came really as an idea to me because people kept reaching out to me and saying, I want to do CrossFit, but I got turned away from a CrossFit gym because the coach didn't feel like it was safe. Right. And so
coach needs to know more in that situation.
Coaches need to know more. And it's not their fault either.
No, I know.
Right?
Yeah, right.
And so that stuff is coming. I can tell you because I'm working on it. Others are working on it, like literally actively working on it. On a more formalized, like systematic level, I think that's what we'll hear more about over the next year.
Cool.
I can't tell you I know exactly what the plan is yet.
I think one of the things when you talk to most people who don't know much about CrossFit is they think it's unsafe from a health perspective. And we've been fighting that for a really long time. I think providers could probably play a huge role in sort of blunting or mitigating or even changing that message. Don't you get that a lot from your own patients or the people you know around you? Like, this is going to totally mess me up if I do that.
I have two answers. One of them is more flippant, depending on who I'm talking to. I don't usually give flippant answers to patients, but, one of them is, heart disease is unsafe too. I'd much rather, have a chronic inflammation of my knee because I squat all the time than have cardiovascular disease long-term and have a heart attack. So that's sort of my flippant answer to this is, yes, look, anything you do all the time. If you run marathons, guess what? Your ankles and your knees and your back get beat up and your hips and your everything else, right? If you go to spin class, there's their own,
agreed.
Anything you do all the time has repetitive use injury. That's just true.
Right.
Good coaching, right? And good programming mitigates some of that risk, but not all of it. There's no question about it. Look, I've been doing this a long time. I've had a lot of injuries.
Right.
Right. But overall, I'd rather have a bum shoulder, right, than have a bum heart.
Right.
So that's part of it. I would say one of the things that, CrossFit Health is trying to do and is a longer term goal is building in like CEUs and educational stuff for doctors that are not in the CrossFit community just to spread that kind of message. And understand scalability and things like that we're not asking someone who's never lifted a barbell in their life to start doing snatches and muscle ups on day one.
Right.
Right. So, yes, doctors are going to play a huge role in that. We need to figure out how to get the word out to them. Some of that, I think, was very well-intentioned, not necessarily perfectly executed originally, but with the CrossFit MD level 1s, they have started up now. Again, there was a very recent CrossFit MD level 1. They now have a level 2 for MDs, but they are also doing CrossFit healthcare providers, so the much broader community level 1 classes. And I think that's really important. Right? Getting the word out to providers about how to talk to patients about this stuff. There's always going to be doubters. That's okay. Right? This also isn't for everyone. But, getting the word out that movement is medicine, I think is where a lot of this starts.
That was awesome. Yeah. You have anything else, Sam?
No.
Allison, anything else you wanted to get out there?
No, I mean, I think one really important thing is, for anyone listening, clearly you're like, you are a CrossFitter, you're in this already, right? But to Sam's point, like, get out, talk to your friends about this, and not just about the crazy workout you did, because we all do that, right?
Oh my God, I'm so beat
Oh
up.
my God, I'm so sore.
Yesterday's WOD had
Dave
200 wall balls.
Dave tried to kill me this week, right? And we all do that because we love to tell war stories, right? But
know your audience.
But tell your friends the stories of, the person who walked in the door at 300 pounds and lost 100 pounds.
Right.
Tell your friends the story of, the person who is pregnant and came in, this week and is due tomorrow.
And even more, just some of the mental health gains that we've had with so many people, just like confidence and friendships and relationships that have been built here. Like, I think that's something that everyone would feed off of a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, one of the biggest draws to me about CrossFit when I started way back when was the focus on health and what you could do. Right. I came from a gymnastics background. I was a Division I gymnast. Right. It was about what you weighed and what you looked like.
Right.
Right. And especially back then in CrossFit 2009, 2010, CrossFit was so focused on what you could do.
Right.
Right. Not what your body type was,
Right.
not what your body fat was, not what you looked like in a sports bra.
Right.
And unfortunately, some of that has changed over the years. And I think that's a loss for CrossFit.
I agree. The marketing behind it has changed a lot.
But there's also been some great people, really body positive people out there that have brought that message. And I think I've seen just so many people over the years come from eating disordered backgrounds and gain so much from being a part of this community and learning about the importance of being strong, not just skinny.
Yes. Yeah, those are the messages you want to get out.
These are the stories that we need to tell.
Agreed.
Right?
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things that this talk I'm going to come away with is you used CrossFit and exercise for when you were the most busy and most taxed mentally at work. And I think about all the people that I've talked to at our gym who says, like, I need this because my work is so busy, because I am so taxed, because I have so many other things on my mind. And it's not the physical stuff that some of these people rely on. It's the mental health and well-being. And I really do want to emphasize that. I think I'm going to push that more, that, listen, you think you don't have time, but honestly, if you're that stressed and frazzled, like,
you got to make
this might actually be more important than anything else you do.
I say this to patients a lot, but, patients say, like, when they first get diagnosed, I don't have time to be sick. And, and I say, well, you already are sick, right?
Yeah.
But in the context of CrossFit, like, people say, I don't have time to work out. Well, you don't have time to be sick either.
Right.
Right? You don't have time to be depressed. You don't have time to not be able to get out of bed. You don't have time to have a heart attack. And so, there's short term, I don't have time, and there's long term, I don't have time. One of the things that Dave and I talked about when I first joined Bison was we were coming off the main part of the pandemic. I was in probably the worst physical shape of my life, but also the worst mental shape of my life.
Yep.
Right? I was literally a frontline doctor in Manhattan through the height of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Right? Doing seminars around the country, like by Zoom, trying to teach people how to treat COVID patients because we had made it up as we went along.
Wow.
And when I walked in the door, I was like a very broken person.
Right.
Right? And over the last year and a half, 2 years, the ability to find that community again and, start to find myself through that again, has just been tremendous. I think that's a huge part of actually why my husband ended up starting to do CrossFit, because he saw just how
saw the turn
for me of going from, pretty significant depression, PTSD, whatever you want to call it,
Right. Yeah.
to, really starting to feel like myself again. And, that is invaluable. And you don't have to go through something like being a doctor in a pandemic, like anything that happens in your life, this community, more so even than the fitness, though the fitness really matters, right, can change your life for the better.
Yeah. That's a great way to end it. Thanks so much, Allison. This was awesome. So much good information there. I'm going to probably listen to this one a few times. That was really good. All right. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you, everybody, for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Herd Fit podcast. Be on the lookout for next week's episode.